If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry, and listen to some music at least once every week. A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, not those who know much, who so positively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. We stopped looking for monsters under our bed when we realized that they were inside us. The love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us, and I for one must be content to remain an agnostic. Blushing is the most peculiar and most human of all expressions. An American monkey, after getting drunk on brandy, would never touch it again, and thus is much wiser than most men. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. Intelligence is based on how efficient a species became at doing the things they need to survive. One general law, leading to the advancement of all organic beings, namely, multiply, vary, let the strongest live and the weakest die. Besides love and sympathy, animals exhibit other qualities, connected with the social instincts, which in us would be called moral. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man with all his noble qualities still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. Man selects only for his own good, nature only for that of the being which she tends. Great is the power of steady misrepresentation. Nothing is easier than to admit, in words, the truth of the universal struggle for life, or more difficult, at least I have found it so, than constantly to bear this conclusion in mind. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous, successive, slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. But I can find no such case. It is always advisable to perceive clearly our ignorance. I see no good reasons why the views given in this volume should shock the religious views of anyone. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. We will now discuss in a little more detail the struggle for existence. A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. Wherever the European had trod, death seemed to pursue the aboriginal.